All right, we're here at the Focus, and we have director Zach Gayne here with us. He's got a film at the upcoming Toronto After Dark Film Festival. It's called Homewrecker. It stars Precious Chong and Alex Essoe. It's going to be a really great film, and it's premiering at the Toronto After Dark Film Festival, like I said. And it's also had a screening at or a premiere at the Fantasia
Correct.
International Film Festival in Montreal, which is very exciting. But yeah, let's get to the nitty gritty here. How did this film come along? Of course, and I guess that's the first question. And
Yeah,
the inspiration for it. Yeah.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
No problem.
Really
No
appreciate
problem.
it.
No problem.
Yeah, so actually, believe it or not, this project has its roots all the way back in like 2008, 2009. Back when I was living in Vancouver, I had just graduated from Vancouver Film School. Alex was also there at the time taking acting classes, and we were co-writers and collaborators at that point. We had just made this movie called, this short film called Free to Go, which I think surpassed our Actually, that's not true. We knew it was a winner. That being said, it got us, it got me some freelance gigs afterward. And one of these gigs was somebody commissioned me to write a treatment for essentially Homewrecker. It was an article. Actually, so while this is based on a true story, I mean it's not. It was, the article was just this cliche situation of the Lifetime movie aspect of the film, which is just, without spoiling the film, a very typical love triangle type of deal. And I sort of looked at the material and I'm like, well, how can I turn this into something that I can personally get excited about? So I basically gave it the juice of what would become the film we're talking about today. And then I met up with the guy and showed him the treatment. He's like, this is not what I was looking for at all. And I, fair enough. And then I even wrote a treatment for what he wanted. I don't want to see that movie. I don't want to make that movie. I don't want to see it. But this one, I always liked it, and I thought about it on and off over the last decade or something like that. And then about 5 years ago, 6 years ago at this point, I met Precious Chong, and she and I started working on sketch comedy, sketches that went on her. She has this podcast called Sex and the Single Parent, and she wanted to take it into video sketch comedy. And once I started working with her, re-editing her short film and things like this, she's like, wow, maybe we can work together beyond what we've been doing thus far. So we started doing these sketches for years, and I just always loved working with her. I think she enjoyed working with me too, and in the back of my mind, I always knew that she'd be in a feature that I made at some point. And then one day, Homewrecker popped back into my head, as it did time and time again, and then and now with like 10 years more of life, I sort of was thinking about it from a different lens. And then I realized, I'm like, well, hey, I have my friend Alex and I have my friend Precious. I think I might know these people. I think we could write these roles around these people and their experience. And I just started getting very excited about this project for the first time. I mean, I'd never been as excited about it as I was when I realized that all the elements were in play. So I called them both up respectively. For Alex, it was like, hey, remember Homewrecker? And for Precious, I just told her what the treatment was, and she was really excited about it. And then the three of us were just, off and running.
So this is your directorial debut?
No,
it's not. Okay, so you've done films before, yeah?
Yeah, not that I blame you for not knowing that, because it's not. It's sort of out. So I made this super DIY project called States, which is like a love letter to DIY, and it was just me and a DSLR in 8 different states in America, sort of this neo-realistic approach to a road film anthology with people I met along the way. Interesting people. That's sort of how I base it around. I would meet people first, and then I would, if they agreed to go on this crazy adventure with me, then we would drive from one state to another and make a movie. Doing so, And we shot that in 2016. I'd been cutting it ever since, and then it actually played at the Cinema Village this summer.
Right.
So it came out. That's in New York City, and hopefully it's going to screen at the Royal in January.
Nice.
Yeah, it's being put out by IndieCan Entertainment.
Nice. Avi
Avi Federgreen,
Yeah.
produced by my very good friend David Heyman of Supergroup, who's a music supervisor who liked the material so much he came on board in a big way. So that's the first film. Alex is in that as well. And Precious would have been in it because originally the intent of it was to start in Mexico and end in Canada and cross the states. But I ran out of money in Utah, so the next state would have starred Precious.
Nice. So do you think this movie's coming out at a good time, Homewrecker? Because it deals with someone who is like, sort of like Precious's role in the film, someone who's like trying to get not ahead in life, but can't get ahead in life, can't get the fact that she is getting older and she's becoming a little bit more of an outcast. So that's kind of like ties into what the film Joker is, and like
which I'll be seeing tomorrow, by the way.
Yes.
I haven't caught it yet.
No, and so people are just trying to people are now in society, and especially in the film industry, are concentrating on these sort of like characters or character studies.
I agree that it's absolutely topical right now, but by the same token, a big inspiration for the film from day one, from 2008, was All About Eve. And the pressure that society has always put on women, and that isn't really stopping with modern times, and the pressure women feel to stay relevant, certainly in Hollywood, and sort of the angst that can cause, and the insecurity in terms of new up and comers, and passing on the throne, so to speak. So it is more relevant now than ever, but I think it always has been.
And so you're also a film journalist as well, and you write for Screen Acre, of course.
Yeah.
But all the interviews you've done in the past with other filmmakers and other actors and directors, how has that like sort of like helped you or influenced you to what you're doing today? For example, like your film Homewrecker.
Right. Honestly, like practically speaking, the way it's helped the most is to just, and not even for Homewrecker because Alex and Precious are friends of mine, but like for the next film I'm going to make, it just sort of helped me get over being in the presence of somebody that I admire the shit out of. May I drop an S-bomb? Yeah,
that's fine. You can drop any bomb you
want. Oh, wonderful. Good to know. I meant to ask you that prior because sometimes I can't help myself. So, that's an important thing, to just be able to, sweep your admiration under the rug and just work with another person. So that more than ever. But I've always been obsessed with film, and that's where I came at the journalism from. So all of my interviews with filmmakers, I don't know, that was always me. And the questions I ask would have been the ones I was asking if I wasn't fortunate to get a one-on-one interview. If I just watched a film, I would have these questions. And I've only ever been in journalism in the first place to have the great privilege of like engaging with my heroes and just being able to talk about the film. It never occurred to me that this could be a career, and it still isn't. Like I was telling you right before we started that I was at the New York Film Festival 6 hours ago. This time yesterday, I just saw 2 press screenings. I saw Marriage Story, followed by Wasp Network, the new Oliver Assayas. He always mispronounces his last name.
Cloud Atlas guy, right?
No. Or did he do Cloud Atlas? He did the Clouds of Sault Ste. Marie. No, that's not correct.
Okay.
The Clouds of something or other.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which is a great film.
Yeah.
Can you tell how much I like it? Anyway, so what's sometimes fun about watching a movie with only press people was there was a line in the movie that got a total unintended laugh, where I think the line was something like I've never heard of a writer who gets paid, and then the whole theater started laughing.
Yeah.
So it's just funny. People of all generations laughing at the same joke that it's kind of a joke career nowadays. It's for me, I don't consider it a career. I consider it a hobby and a calling, maybe. But yeah, I mean, if I never got to do this for Screen Anarchy, and hopefully if I still got to have a parallel career as a filmmaker, I like to think these interviews might happen just without a tape recorder at some point or another, you know, just wanting to talk about my favorite things with my favorite people. And Screen Anarchy has awarded me that privilege, and I'm so grateful for that.
So which film festival do you feel that, like, well, I mean, you're not going to, but which one is more exciting to you, or a little bit more comfortable for you?
Yeah. No, I'd love to talk about. I've been so lucky to go to as many film festivals as I have. Not that, I mean, I've had the usual suspects, and I'd like to start expanding on some of those ones. But so I grew up going to TIFF, you know, not as a journalist, just as like a film lover in high school, lining up at the Manulife Center like long before the internet, and like, you know, like 5 a.m. just trying to get a
ticket.
$8 ticket or something. And oh my God, not to badmouth TIFF right now, because I you know, that festival will always have my heart, but at that point it just felt like this really well kept secret that that locals were just blessed to have this annual thing that didn't feel like it was on the map, the international radar, and yet I know I'm not the only one who just felt so spoiled by what would come to our town every year. So TIFF will always have my heart, and particularly Midnight Madness. My first year of going to Midnight Madness, I think, was like 2002. I feel like Bubba Hotep. I got like a picture with Bruce Campbell back in the day when I liked to take pictures with celebrities. I have a picture with like Jim Jarmusch from Coffee and Cigarettes, and I was just a literal kid in a cinematic candy store. So yeah, TIFF is the best, and it's never stopped being awesome. And Midnight Madness has never stopped being awesome. And you know, Colin Geddes is somebody whose programming I've loved, and now he's passed the throne on to Peter Kaplowski, who's doing such a kick-ass job. So yeah, so TIFF is the best. But as for when I started leaving home to checking out new festivals, the first one was South by Southwest. And that was really exciting to me because I like music just as much as I like film. So that offered the best of both worlds, where I could see my favorite filmmakers at the time. Like Richard Linklater is definitely in my top 3 filmmakers, and Boyhood had just premiered, and I got to cover Boyhood, and I got to take part in a round table, and I just like couldn't believe my good fortune. And then the next day I'm seeing my favorite band, and or bands plural, because they're playing every hour. So at first South by really just bedazzled me, and I loved it for that. And I did it for 5 years. And then the first one that you had asked me earlier, sort of which film festival I had to adapt to. Sundance. My first Sundance, trying to figure out the shuttles and just like the logistics of that festival and like how cold it is. I was just like, what the hell is this place? And I'm like, why am I watching movies with soaking wet feet that I'm like barely able to get to in time? And I would say that first Sundance kicked my ass. But getting to return and sort of getting a better handle on the way the buses worked, and just getting over the fact that, all right, you're going to be cold, and for some reason this festival exists in a really cold climate.
How does that happen, Robert?
I don't know. It's like snowing really hard, and there's all these heat lamps. I mean, but it's still so fun. And it's kind of fun that you're all in it together, and everybody's wearing these jackets, and everyone's suffering through it together. No offense, Sundance.
Movie, Oh, man. So, what do you think? What actual festival do you think it's still relative to Screen at? So, do you think like, what's the ratings like? Do you have to be at Sundance, or do you have to be at Venice, or do you have to be at Berlinale, or do you have to be at TIFF? What do you think is like, or do you have to be at South by Southwest?
Well, let me just...
what's your perspective on that? Yeah.
Well, let me first tell you what the website's perspective on it is. Screen Anarchy, which began as Twitch Film, I've been with them for over 5 years now, coming on 6, and I think half that time was Twitch Film and half that was Screen Anarchy. Yeah. So, but what I always just adored about the management, so to speak, is that their attitude is just follow your heart. They're not assigning anything. They just want to know what you're passionate about, what you want to do, and if you want to, fervently write about something you're passionate about, then that's what they want to publish. They're not going to say, well, yes, they are somewhat a genre website that comes from a horror background. Essentially started at Fantastic Fest, not quite, but yeah, they're really coming from like an Asian cinema and just genre cinema, and but that I love horror, I love genre, but like I said off the bat, I just wanted to talk to Richard Linklater, and I wanted to talk about music, and I have this podcast called Music on Screen that they let me do, and that's like so outside of their maybe original mission statement, but never have they said that's really not very Screen Anarchy. They've just been cool to let me talk about what I think is great.
Yeah, there's been like a big flush of like music documentaries.
Right.
But the recent one here at TIFF was with Robbie Robertson with Ron Howard and Martin Scorsese.
Yeah,
the producer of that.
The band are my favorite band. Certainly I haven't seen it yet. I'll catch it at Hot Docs Theater. Another festival I love, by the way. But of course, I'm referring to the Hot Docs Cinema, formerly the Bloor Cinema, where it's opening in a week. But God, do I love the band. And at TIFF this year, I didn't really get to see anything because I was gearing up for Fantastic Fest, and like I don't really cover TIFF that much. I've really held on to my fan perspective on TIFF. I like to go to it just as a local Torontonian film lover, and I still do to this day. Which unfortunately means that I want to buy tickets, or I have to buy tickets. I don't even apply for accreditation, because that would mean I would just be seeing all my films at the Scotiabank and press screenings. And I like Q&As. A lot of people will just like walk out of the theater before the Q&A, but that totally defeats the purpose to me. Like my interviewing is an extension of the fact that I just want to see them interviewed, and I get to be the one to ask the questions on my mind, which is great, but I'm just as happy to watch somebody else ask those questions. But I could not afford a gala. I can't. Yeah. I'm not dropping like $120 to go to Roy Thompson Hall and see Robbie Robertson bow, or Princess of Wales and watch him not show up. But that's particularly because I got to. On that first Thursday night, they screened The Last Waltz at the Lightbox in 35 millimeter with Scorsese and Robertson introducing the film, and that was just like such a treat. Yeah. So yeah, I'm like, I'll see Band of Brothers or whatever it's called in a month, and I have Robbie Robertson's book. I've read Levon's book. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, nice. I've read that you've also interviewed the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, that happened. That happened.
Was it like in front, or was that through email, or was that the red carpet? Or
yeah, okay. So I seldom do red carpets. I don't like it. I don't like being somebody out for a scoop, like, oh, I hope they talk to me, blah, 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 and just being kind of pushy. I hate anything that forces me to be pushy. I don't want to be pushy, ever. But you gotta stake your claim, kind of. Yeah. And so sometimes when the opportunity is right, like, really, I can talk to like everyone attending from Wu-Tang. Yeah, like, yes, please. So it was a red carpet, and that one was particularly cool because not that many people showed up. So I got to talk to all of them for a sizable time, and yeah, so I have about like 15 minutes of audio of just me and each one respectively, not 15 minutes per, but adding up to 15. I like looking people in the eyes. I don't really enjoy doing phoners, and I certainly don't email questions, because to me that defeats the purpose. I'm not out for a scoop. I'm out for a human connection and an engagement over art that I have engaged in on a personal level.
So who did you thought was really cool? Was it you guy? Was it RZA? Was it?
I mean, Riz is obviously. I mean, he's not the genius. I guess that's.
Yeah, he's not.
But he's a genius,
Yes.
and you know, he's the mastermind behind the sounds in the Clan, and let's not forget his work with like Tarantino and on Kill Bill, which I had to ask him about, and I love that about Wu-Tang, that they come from such a Shaw Brothers kung fu background, so
Yeah.
I got to talk with RZA about film in addition to his craft, so that one was particularly cool for me.
So did you also go to cons as well, or?
So yeah, this was my first. This was my first can or con, or I still don't. Is the jury still out on? You say that? I don't know.
Cans, Bitha or Bitha. Or
Yeah,
whatever,
tomato, tomato.
Tomato, yeah. Calgary. I don't know.
A boot, a bot, a boot.
It's the most recent one.
Yeah. Right. So
Tell
I'd
us
never
something.
even been to Europe before. So that was a thrill on so many levels. But I told you that this was the first South by I didn't go to, and that was mostly to save up money.
Yeah.
To go to Cannes, and I hope I get to always go, because it was such a dream come true.
So it's crazy, as they say. Did you go there as with a press pass?
Journalist, yeah.
Journalist. And what's it like there? I mean, are the theaters close together, and all the red carpets theater and all? Is it like?
It's tough to navigate on your first day, and or day one, day two. You're wondering how you're going to survive the thing, how you're going to figure out all these French titled theaters, and how, like, are you in the right line?
Yeah.
And they're not that kind in terms of making sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So it's a big learning curve.
Speaking of learning curves, Sundance was one. Con was probably worse, I guess, or comparable anyway. But once you got the swing of it, it was such a surreal treat. Where I was staying was like a 40-minute walk away, and I could have taken a bus that would have made it like 5-10 minutes to get there each morning, as my roommate did, but I chose to just walk along the beautiful Riviera every morning.
That's awesome.
Oh, what a way to wake up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, incredible. Like before I had coffee, because the coffee's free there.
Nice.
If you're lucky enough to have access to the media room, you're not paying for coffee.
Yeah.
So I'm like naturally waking up, watching the tide roll in, roll away, and listening to whatever. This year it was a lot of guided by voices. For your information.
Nice. And then you reviewed the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And
yeah, Screen Anarchy let me have a crack at that. We obviously talk in email threads going in, who wants to cover what? And I said, well, obviously I want to cover Once Upon a Time, like most of us.
Yeah.
And they're like, go for it. And I was like, thank you. But that was so cool for me, because Tarantino is an extremely pivotal filmmaker in my life. Pulp Fiction really blew my mind wide open in terms of like what a film could be. So I owe Tarantino a debt, unquestionably.
And did you also go see Parasite at Cannes?
Yeah, I saw that.
And were you surprised that they gave that film the award?
No, just because of the reaction in the theater I was in, and just how excited everybody was about it. So watching the awards was everybody applauded when it won. So speaking of the WASP network, how everybody sort of laughed at the writers don't get paid stuff. So Cannes also has their own private press screenings. So you're watching it with the press generally.
Yeah.
And the awards were really fun because, the first day, the opening film was The Dead Don't Die, which I also got to review.
Nice,
and then and then a couple months later, maybe it was because my review was I was going to use the word generous, but in my mind, right on, because I think that movie's awesome, whereas a lot of people don't think that movie's awesome. But I got to interview Jim Jarmusch 2 months later in New York, which probably wouldn't have happened if not for that review. I can't say that 100%. But yeah, so anyhow, that was the opening night film. It was the first film I got to see. Thank God I didn't fuck up the line and I got to get in at all.
Yeah.
But so the first 40 minutes, it was a live telecast of what was happening in the main, the Red Steps Theater in the opening ceremony, which I guess felt like the French Oscars, but it was this beloved French comedian telling jokes in French that I didn't understand. Most of us didn't understand, and I'm just like, what am I watching? And it went on and on and on. But I loved it. So that was great. And then fast forward to the end of the festival. Now we're watching the awards ceremony from the same theater, which is being telecast from next door. Yeah. And God, I wish I could remember who specifically won for what. Maybe it was like... it wasn't grand jury. I can't remember what the award was. But the speech was something like, it's so great to win because I used to be a journalist covering con, and it's wonderful to be on the other side. And everybody in the press was like applauding and just like totally supportive, like one of us, Google Gobble. Yeah. And that was kind of beautiful.
So what is your take on the many critics that all these, because we have the internet now, and then we have all new Jins, Siskel's, and Ebers, and like millions and millions
Everyone
of podcasts.
Has a voice.
Everybody's got a voice,
which is great.
And what's your perspective on the pros and cons of that?
Okay.
And how in the hell do all these film festivals, how do they rank that, or how do they say you get to go and you can't? You get to go and you can't.
The gatekeepers.
So, absolutely.
I mean, I'll start out by saying, and I don't know that I'm gonna make any friends for saying this, but I'll say it because I feel it. Rotten Tomatoes has their critic score and their audience score. I generally pride myself in usually agreeing with the audience.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like critics.
Yeah.
It's that I don't know. I don't love people who are like too proud of themselves for being a critic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I am more of the opinion that film is for the people, and a lot of critics are the people, and they're my favorite critics, and sort of the ones who don't have an ego about what they do. But some people, they'll write negative reviews and just totally delight in like taking people down or and like I just can't relate to that personally. So I've even had some flack from colleagues in the past being like, oh, you only write good reviews, which is true, but I only write about things that I want to recommend.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's not
so why exactly. Go ahead,
yeah, so it's not like I'm ever saying something I don't feel. I'm just not advertising my dislike of something,
right?
Unless it like really deserves it. Well, I mean, I'll shout out a movie right now that like I didn't give it a bad review because also, I like who has the time? Lots of people, but like, what do I want to spend my afternoon talking shit? I don't.
Right.
But I'll talk some shit right now about the movie Sharon Tate. Yeah. There's like a movie Sharon Tate that just makes a slasher film out of the Manson crimes. And that's a movie that I just like don't agree with the existence of, So that's an example of a movie that I think that I'm not sad to see get panned.
Right. Yeah.
And like ditto some Hollywood fare, like a lot of movies aren't made with integrity, so they don't necessarily deserve to be
discussed.
Yeah. But or applauded, but or discussed. So like if a studio doesn't need my help, sure, like I'm not gonna have such a problem with writing negative thoughts about it. But at the same time, I don't get off on it.
Right. So let's go. Let's get back to your film, Homewrecker.
Cool.
What's it like just to have mainly just two people working with two? Yeah. Like instead of like a whole.
It was a challenge to like kind of make the shot list. Like, how am I gonna make this one location, two actors? How am I gonna make this engaging for ideally 80 minutes? We came up with 76. 4 minutes shy of the goal. Close enough. Yeah, so split screen is a device that I utilized to tell that story. And you did mention prior to this interview, you were wondering if there were any directorial influences in that. Yes, probably the one you're wondering about.
Which is what again, sir?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm guessing. What do you think I'm influenced by?
I think you were influenced a little bit by the film Misery and maybe Single White Female.
Misery, sure. Single White Female, I totally watched. But when I'm making a movie, or rather, when I'm writing, when I'm in the process of thinking about constructing a film, I want to submerge myself in similar movies, not to take anything, but just to feel it all from all angles, and eventually it just like blurs into one. So I'm not shouting out any one movie necessarily, but Barbet Schroeder's Single White Female is absolutely a film I watched. In the early days, I pitched Homewrecker as Single White Female meets All About Eve.
Nice.
Actually. But regards to the split screen, so yeah, I think it's a shameless nod to 70s Brian De Palma.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I was kind of like, wow, he's a split screen now. That was like cool. I haven't seen that in a while. You know what I mean?
I mean, on the one hand, I got to pay tribute to one of my all-time favorite filmmakers during his peak decade, which is the 70s in my mind. Not that he doesn't have some incredible stuff in the 80s. I'm specifically thinking of Body Double. Not necessarily Scarface, which I also have come to appreciate. I actually really didn't care for it the first time I saw Scarface. I had to that movie had to grow on me, believe it or not. As a kid, I hated Brian De Palma. I saw Snake Eyes in theaters, and I was like, "What is this shit?" And why does everybody love Scarface? Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sure, split screen gave me a means to pay homage to my favorite filmmaker, but also, more than that, it was a fully justified use of the device, because I was number one, in thinking, okay, we only have two characters. I was like, well, what if each of them had their own side of the screen?
Yeah.
So even when it's not split screen, it's split screen.
Right.
There's a lot of natural splits in the frames, whether it's like the banister or... I approached the entire visual aspect that way, not just split, but in terms of the specific split, a lot of the times I just wanted, our characters are separated by a wall for a lot of the film, and so that was a way to have them be in the same scene while still being separated, and getting to watch them react in real time, and not maintaining a theater aspect while still being in the realm of cinema. And I think theater is also a way I approach some of the more dramatic scenes, just some of the longer scenes where I just wanted it. Sometimes the film feels like a play. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Tell us about industry standard films.
Sure.
I've seen a couple of shots from on the Instagram with you at Fantasia there. So tell us a little bit about them. Yeah.
So Industry Standard Films is Josh Mandel's production company. Josh is one of my very valued producers, along with Ben Umstead, who, by the way, is not only an editor of Screen Anarchy, but the reason for all of this. He invited me to write for Screen Anarchy. After I was just writing for my friend's blog in 2013, Ben, who was a huge fan. Okay, so Ben and Josh are both programmers at Slamdance.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So they programmed my friend Matt Johnson's film, The Dirties, back in January 2013, which was right around the time that my friend Dan Wary Smith, who's the other reason that this all happened, by the way. I never wanted to be a film journalist. I never wanted to write about film, but my friend Dan started this this sort of local website, and he was sort of looking through his friend group for who could possibly contribute, and he always knew that I was obsessed with film, and we'd been seeing each other at TIFF since, I remember seeing him at Ken Park. I don't know, any Ken Park fans out there? I hope not. No. No. So yeah, he invited me to write for the site, and this is actually so relevant to everything. Remind me to circle back to whatever question
absolutely.
you asked. By the way, I've already lost it.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah. So Dan invited me to write for his site, and I said, "Sure. What do you want?" And he said, "I don't know. What do you want to write about?" Not that dissimilar to Screen Anarchy, really. And I said, "Well, gee, my friend Matt Johnson, who made this movie, The Dirties, just played at Slam Dance. I'm sure he'd talk to me."
Yeah.
And it just so happened that at Slam Dance, it won like the Spirit of Slam Dance award. It was like super successful. Kevin Smith bought it. So suddenly it was even like a little bit of a scoop. So Matt comes back. We go to a bar, and like over 2 hours and over some pints, we had this very elongated discussion over The Dirties. And I learned right away, never do another 2-hour interview, because that will leave you with a lot of material. If you're transcribing an interview, if you had to transcribe this, what a nightmare.
Yeah.
It took me until September. So that was January, and it took me till September. But what I didn't know is at that time, at January, running this parallel life to me was Ben and Josh, who were huge fans of The Dirties and like were Matt Johnson fans from day one. So they were following that film. Meanwhile, so I do the interview, and then I put it in my back pocket, and I don't think about it for a long time. And then my second interview is like, to this day, if this wasn't my second interview, it would be like top 5 people, living or dead, you could talk to. He would still be number 1 or whatever high on my list, and that's Doug Marsh of Built to Spill.
Okay.
Who did the score of Homewrecker.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so he was the second person I ever interviewed, and he is my hero. I have many heroes. I have lots of love for creatives.
Nice.
And he's one of my favorites. So anyway, I interviewed him at this music festival in Boise called Treefort, this awesome local festival. He's from Boise. And so I spent that first 7-9 months doing music criticism. I reviewed a Yo La Tango show, and honestly it was just a means to get into shows for free. Like I couldn't pay for all the concerts I went to. I was such a concert junkie, and I just spent all my money on concerts. So really, what was the appeal for me? Free concerts,
right?
And getting to talk to Doug Marsh. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Which I did right away, and what a wonderful conversation we had. And I was like, oh my God, I can keep doing this. And then in May, I got to talk to D.A. Pennebaker, one of my all-time favorite filmmakers, rest in peace, who we just lost this year. But he made my all-time favorite. He's made a couple of my all-time favorite documentaries. If I had to pick one, it would be Don't Look Back. But he also made Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, Monterey Pop, Sweet Toronto, like John Lennon's concert in Toronto.
Nice.
Which was also this throwback to it had Jerry Lee Lewis and Lord Sutch was there. Anyway, so as a rockumentary, some people don't like that term. As a music film documentary lover, it doesn't. D.A. Pennebaker is the holy grail of that. And then I got to speak to Jay Mascis of Dinosaur Jr. So I was just over the moon, and then my very good friend Matthew Miller, who's the producer of The Dirties and Operation Avalanche and Nirvana the band, he's the reason I knew about The Dirties. When I did, I got to I handed out sides at the auditions, helping out and shit, and played a high schooler in The Dirties. I'm in the film a little bit. Watching Matt get bullied. So anyway, I asked Matthew, I said, so when's the latest this interview can come out? And he says, well, the film is coming out at the Lightbox in September, so I guess that would be the final occasion. So I finally got off my ass and spent a long time re-listening to the interview and making an article out of it. and which they posted on their Facebook page. And then Ben Umstead saw that interview and tweeted at me. I still don't really use Twitter, but he's like,
me neither. So.
Yeah. He said, we need to talk. He
Right.
he liked my interview. He said, great take on the film, essentially. And he's like, would you be interested in doing stuff for Twitch Film? And I said, would I?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how that started. So those are my two Slam Dance producers. Then we also have Lex Emanuel, who was a major asset to the production when we were making the film. And Precious is a producer, and Alex is a producer. Precious was like my biggest partner in crime throughout all this in terms of like beginning to end.
Nice.
She's the one who I like, yeah.
It's kind of surreal too that she's Tommy Chong's daughter, right?
Yeah, she sure is. Let me just quickly, before we talk about that,
Yeah.
also Kyra Rogers is one of our very valued producers. She came on. I met Kyra at Cannes, but God, we couldn't have done it without her. She's been incredible. So we have a pretty wide slate of producers on our credits, but that's the producing team. Please God, let me not have left anyone out. I don't think I have.
I think you're good.
Please forgive me. No. Yeah, as for so Tommy Chong, yeah. When I first started working with Precious, I didn't know she was Tommy Chong's daughter. I just knew her name was Precious Chong.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I was expecting when I first sat down to be interviewed by her. It was like basically it wasn't Craigslist, but it was like she needed somebody to do this film in a week camp is what actually got us in the same room in the first place.
Yes.
So I don't know what I was expecting. Somebody very new agey, kind of.
Yeah.
And to my great surprise, she was super down to earth, and she had a good feeling about me. So she hired me, and we started doing this film in a week camp. And by like the Thursday, I speaking for myself, I know I was having a great time working with her, and I was just like, man, you're so much cooler than I assumed you would be.
Yeah.
And then she sort of casually dropped that her father was Tommy Chong, and I was like, shut the fuck up. Shut your goddamn mouth right now. And like, I was like, no wonder you're so
the
cool.
Front door. Come on.
I could have said worse things.
Yeah.
I often do, just to see the look on your face. No. Yeah. So I was like, no wonder you're so cool. And then we started making more and more sketches, and then sometimes we would find ourselves in Los Angeles at the same time, which is where her parents live, and she'd be like, oh, my dad could be in this one. I was like, he can?
Yeah.
So that happened for the first couple, and then like after enough of them, I'm just like, Tommy's just a great guy, I know.
Nice.
Like, and man, what a thrill it was that he and his wonderful wife Shelby got to come to Montreal because they happened to be on tour at the time, not that far away. So they came to Fantasia, and hearing Tommy's chuckle in the audience, like whenever I felt so good whenever he'd laugh at any joke.
Nice.
I felt good about all the whatever small handful of times I've been able to get a laugh out of Tommy Chong. That's a good feeling.
Your friend Alex, when I was watching the homework, she's a great actress.
Yeah.
And,
well, have you seen Starry Eyes?
No, I haven't seen that.
So that's why people, not all people, but people who are like certainly steeped in the genre film world, that's what they were all blown away by her from. She got this starring vehicle in 2014 by the filmmakers who went on to make the Pet Sematary adaptation that just came out, and it's kind of funny in full circle that now she's in Dr. Sleep, the Stephen King adaptation. So life's funny. And do you want to know how funny life is?
Yeah.
So this is great. So we were friends, as I said. We both knew each other in Toronto. I mentioned Matthew Miller. His only film as director, now he's just like this great producer, was a film called Surviving Crooked Lake, which he was cast on, and I was the all-purpose PA on this like eight-person crew.
Yeah.
So that's how we first met, and then we both did our studies in Vancouver, and then I moved back to Toronto. She went to LA to finally have her proper go at it, to take everything she had learned and apply it to Hollywood. And thankfully she nailed this. She booked this role as in Starry Eyes, mainly with her intelligence. You know, if I recall, her audition was pretty good, but she had to convince the filmmakers to like meet her for coffee, and she didn't take no for an answer, and very quickly displayed her film knowledge. And you know, that film is very inspired by Possession, which she's a big fan of, so she endeared herself to the filmmakers that way. And anyway, so Starry Eyes played in at South by in 2014. That was my first time going out for Screen Anarchy. Okay, so our editor, or one of our festival editor, Ryland, asked me if I would review the film. He asked me because he couldn't, because there was too much of a conflict. And I said, well, Ryland, to be honest, there's a bit of a conflict. I'm a friend of Alex's as well, so speaking of conflicts, I don't know if that is one. And he said, well, my conflict is that I gave notes on the film, so yours is not really one. And I said, well, look, I'm not going to give I'm not going to give my friend a bad review, so if I don't like it, I don't want that responsibility. But if it's great, of course I would love to. And thankfully it was great, and she kicked ass, and I was so happy to write that. And the filmmakers really liked that review, so much so that I got quoted in the trailer when it finally came out. And so all of our like mutual Vancouver friends, when it came time to watch the trailer for Alex's first starring vehicle, then there'd be like a quote from me, and they're like, "What the fuck?" So that's again a life is funny kind of. Yeah. What was the question?
I just wanted to comment. I think she's great. And
me too, and she's so good in Homewrecker and in all of her films. But what was such an asset, I guess, for our director-actor relationship was just the fact that, you know, just that I, you know her as a person so well that I could kind of tell when she wasn't feeling it, when she wasn't doing her best work, and which, you know, actors obviously need to build up to it, so sometimes we would talk and just like talk about why on a level that she and I are used to talking, and we'd go back, and then she'd just fucking blow me away. You know?
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah.
So tell us, you're having a screening at the Toronto After Dark Film Festival. How hard is it to get into this festival? For a film.
I wouldn't know because I've never applied before. You know, actually, they might have not accepted Free to Go way back when in 2008 or 9. I can't remember. I think they rejected it. That's okay. So pretty hard. Pretty hard to get in. No. No, I mean, I can say that there was like 900 submissions is my understanding, and only 18 features chosen, so what an honor. What an incredible honor to have made the cut.
So how is all this experience going with all the festivals you're having your film at and stuff?
Well, to be, you know, you've given me the opportunity to tell you so much about my film criticism background that now to be on the other side of the tracks is like really surreal and often bizarre for some journalists to like just that I know their world so intimately. And it's like for Fantasia, we couldn't afford a publicist, so me and Ben both, having written for Screen Anarchy for so long, just both kind of put on our publicist hats that we didn't know we had, and like wrote press releases that we were used to getting.
Right.
You know?
Just from everybody, right? Like that press release, just copy it as a template,
right?
Just send them out.
Sure. And people like you know, are kind of interested in the fact that there's this relationship with what we do that's kind of interesting. So
it is, because we spend a lot of time on it.
Of course. And we're just both so used to talking about films we love, and here we are doing it.
So I know. Well, I guess I'm gonna ask you. So what films have you seen this year so far that has blown you away?
Great, would love to. Well, shit, let's start from the top. January, Sundance. I didn't get the opportunity to see as many films at Slamdance as I would have liked. I did finally catch up with The Vast of Night, which sort of took Slamdance by storm. I saw it at Fantastic Fest. It was also at TIFF Midnight Madness.
Yeah, it was about that radio.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't
super
see
cool,
that.
super good, super
man.
smart.
That's crazy. I missed that one.
Yeah, it's fine. You'll see it. But, the Wu-Tang show, which I think is just finally coming out, was awesome. So I saw the first 2 parts, and now I'll get to see parts 3 and 4 9 months later. I really like the Untitled Amazing Jonathan documentary, which I think is on Hulu. I don't know who's putting it out in Canada. And I know a lot of people don't like that movie, so I don't know how proud I should be of the fact that I love it. But I love it. I think it's hilarious, and I like documentaries that are. It's a documentary that really switch up their medium or just take their medium for a ride. And I think that's what it did. I believe my headline was "It's a wonderful hot mess." So
nice.
some people will resent the hot mess aspect of it, but I just found. It's not going to make much sense if you haven't seen it, but to me, the film itself is mind-fucked and doesn't know if it's coming or going.
Yeah,
and
it's non-linear, right?
It's linear, but the director just does not know what's going on and is always at the cusp of losing it completely, and somehow he keeps finding a way to get back in there and keep making his documentary. And I just found it fascinating. So that's maybe the highlights coming out of Sundance, but not Sundance. But man, do I have to shout out the movie Greta, right? So Neil Jordan's Greta. Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't seen that movie. I heard about that. Yeah.
It's like Neil Jordan made Homewrecker. It's like a classier, more straight-faced version of Homewrecker, where Isabella Huppert is like Precious Chong's character, and Chloe Grace is kind of the Alex character to an extent. It's different, but I loved it. Like you might have thought I'd be watching it with folded arms, but it's just great work. And then we talked about The Dead Don't Die, and I'm a big fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I can't advertise that as much as I would like, because it's a bit of a conflicting film, and I agree. I find there to be a lot of merit to things that people object to in the film. Some of that stuff makes me uncomfortable as well. But I do think that Tarantino has made not only his most beautiful film, but his first beautiful film, which is not really something.
Not really his forte.
Yeah, and yet for such a passionate guy, I mean, he's never been a guy devoid of passion. So for the first time, he's really exercising that passion and conveying this love letter in a way that's so personal and so heartfelt and from the heart that I just responded so much to that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the next festival?
So after cons would be TIFF?
Yeah.
Or Venice, or
which I didn't go to or anything. So let's talk about TIFF. So I told you about The Last Waltz, and then I only saw 2 other movies. One of them was the closing night Midnight Madness, which was called Crazy World.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was crazy. Anyone who
was saying that's crazy.
Yeah, anyone who was there knows what that was.
Oh my god, I can't believe it. I missed that one too. I was so tired after that, man. It was just, I heard it was just nuts.
Yeah, unfortunately for those who missed it, it was kind of a once in a lifetime experience. And you can watch the film, but you're not going to get the live narration.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in the country that makes, I'm trying to remember the.
Is it
what
Nigeria or Uganda?
I think Uganda, but what do they? It's something wood, not Bollywood, but the Ugandan equivalent of. Their extremely DIY version of action filmmaking is not only so charming for, as anyone who's seen my first film States will know, I have a tremendous respect for anyone who just picks up a camera and does it and says, screw the doubts. Just like I'm running on fumes. I'm running on passion, and I'm just gonna do this no matter what. So I think they got that going for it, and particularly since they're making action movies, it's all the funnier and kind of like shitty CGI. But apparently in Uganda, when they get together and watch movies, they'll have like a live MC who'll be like talking the movie, like narrating the movie simultaneously, and that's like a part of the experience.
Yeah.
So, there was an MC who I believe was the filmmaker of Crazy World, possibly, and I can't remember. I wish Kaplowski was here to correct me in all of this. But yeah, so that's what made that such a cool experience, and just crazy. But the other movie, the only interview I got to do out of Toronto was with Julie Delpy, and I told you how much I love Richard Linklater, and I've gotten to interview Ethan Hawke about Blaze, which is a movie out of South by last year that I loved, and Sundance as well. So now I got to speak with his brilliant acting partner, Julie Delpy, and who is also a filmmaker, has made several films, and her newest film, My Zoe, as writer-director, just kicks ass. And it's kind of a throwback to Kieslowski, who she kind of started her career with, when she was a teenager. She was in like a Godard film, and Kieslowski's white, and so she's as interesting as they come. So I loved speaking with her, and I guess that brings us to me being a filmmaker and getting to go to film festivals. So, right? So now I just came home from Fantastic Fest, and I was on the total other side, and I got to just watch movies and not have to worry about what I was going to write about, and I got to just be a film lover.
That's a good feeling, isn't it?
Oh, my God, yeah. Well, because, look, being a journalist lets me just watch movies for free that I can't afford. And so now I got to do that without having to be a film critic.
Nice.
Because film criticism to me is a means to an end.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And not some like financial end, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Just like some personal, passion and some personal fulfillment, and just if these interviews never got published, I would still feel so fulfilled that just like these conversations happened.
Yeah. So we will see your passion at Homewrecker at the Toronto After Dark Film Festival.
Sweet.
So if you guys want to learn about the Toronto After Dark Film Festival, just Google TADF, I believe, or Toronto After Dark.
There's also like a restaurant called After Dark that comes up in the search results. So throw film festival in there.
Yeah, that's not it. But if you want to find out when when is Homewrecker actually going to be screening at the festival?
October 22nd, Tuesday, October 22nd at 9:30. I believe it's in the biggest theater in Scotiabank, which is
Cinema One.
So cool.
That's going to be cool. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah, and let me just say about Fantastic Fest, getting to screen in their biggest theater was just like so surreal. I had seen like It Chapter 2 like 1 week prior on a screen not that much bigger than what I got to watch Homewrecker. Precious and I, that first midnight, we're just looking up at this screen like I couldn't get into the film because I'm like, what is happening? and since it's the Alamo Draft House, and it was a midnight screening, I had a pint in front of me, and that made it all the more surreal. And then it was just a dream.
Nice.
Yeah, but just like After Dark's going to be, and I get to show it to my friends and family, and I hope my new friends will come, and
Well, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with Homewrecker.
Really appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much.
Cool.